There are thoughts running through your mind right now that feel true, that feel like facts, that feel like reality, but they're not. They're cognitive distortions, lies your brain tells you so convincingly that you've built your entire self-concept around them. And these thoughts aren't just harmless mental noise. Research shows they're actively destroying your mental health, limiting your potential, and keeping you trapped in patterns of anxiety, depression, and self-sabotage. Psychology has identified 5 specific types of thoughts that consistently harm people who believe them. And learning to recognize and reject these thoughts isn't positive thinking, it's cognitive survival. Here are 5 types of thoughts you need to stop believing immediately. First, catastrophic thinking. This is when your brain jumps to the worst possible outcome and treats it as inevitable. You make one mistake at work, your brain says you're getting fired. Someone doesn't text back. Your brain says they hate you. You feel a pain in your chest. Your brain says it's a heart attack. Psychologist Dr. Aaron Beck, who pioneered cognitive therapy, identified this as one of the most destructive thought patterns because it keeps you in constant crisis mode over things that haven't happened and probably won't. Here's what research shows. Catastrophic thinking activates your amygdala, your brain's fear center, as if the catastrophe is actually happening right now. Your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your nervous system goes into fight or flight, not because something bad happened, but because you thought about something bad happening. Dr. Michelle Krask's research on anxiety shows that catastrophizers spend most of their mental energy preparing for disasters that never arrive, while missing the actual life happening in front of them. The harm is profound. You're living in a future that doesn't exist, experiencing emotional pain from events that aren't real. Studies show chronic catastrophic thinking leads to generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks, and learned helplessness. Because if everything leads to disaster, why try? And here's the trap. When the catastrophe doesn't happen, you don't learn that your thinking was wrong. You think you worried enough to prevent it, which reinforces the pattern. You're teaching your brain that catastrophizing keeps you safe, when really it's keeping you terrified of a life you're not actually living. Second, mind reading. This is when you assume you know what others are thinking about you, and it's always negative. They didn't smile, they must hate you. They're quiet, they must be mad at you. They canceled plans, they must be avoiding you. Dr. David Burns, in his research on cognitive distortions, found that mind reading is one of the most common patterns in depression and social anxiety because it turns every interaction into evidence of your unworthiness. Here's what makes this so damaging. You're not responding to reality. You're responding to your imagination of what someone else is thinking. And because your brain has a negativity bias, you always imagine the worst. Research by Dr. Roy Baumeister shows that humans are wired to assume social threats even when none exist. It's a survival mechanism. But in modern life, this mechanism misfires constantly. Your coworker isn't thinking about you at all. They're stressed about their own life. But you've already constructed an entire narrative about how they think you're incompetent. The exhaustion comes from living in other people's imagined opinions of you. Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows that mind readers are essentially letting fictional voices in their head determine their self-worth. You feel terrible because of thoughts you invented and attributed to someone else. And the tragedy? You never check, you never ask. You just accept the negative narrative your brain created and treat it as fact. You're being judged, criticized, and rejected by voices that exist only in your own mind, while the real people around you are barely thinking about you at all. Third, all or nothing thinking, also called black and white thinking or dichotomous thinking. If it's not perfect, it's a failure. If you're not the best, you're the worst. If you make one mistake, you're completely incompetent. Dr. Albert Ellis identified this as a core irrational belief that creates misery, because life is not binary, but this thought pattern forces everything into extreme categories. Psychologist Dr. Thomas Curran's research on perfectionism shows that all or nothing thinkers are never satisfied. They achieve something impressive, but it wasn't perfect, so it doesn't count. They make progress, but not complete success, so it's failure. This thought pattern makes success impossible because the standards are literally unattainable. And the stress is constant because you're measuring yourself against an impossible metric every day. Here's the damage. You quit things you're actually good at because you're not immediately perfect. You don't try new things because you can't guarantee mastery. You sabotage relationships because one conflict means total failure. Research shows all or nothing thinking is a major predictor of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and chronic dissatisfaction. Because in a world that's nuanced, complex, and full of gray areas, your brain is trying to function in only black and white. You're missing the entire spectrum of human experience, progress, improvement, learning, growth, because you've decided that anything less than perfection is worthless. You're not living in reality. You're living in an impossible fantasy where only extremes exist. Fourth, should statements. I should be further along by now. I should be more successful. I should be married. I should have my life figured out. I should be happier. I should want what everyone else wants. Psychologist Dr. Karen Horney called these the tyranny of the shoulds. Rules you didn't choose, measuring yourself against standards you don't actually value, and then feeling like a failure when you don't meet them.